Is D&D hype really dying? Well, kinda, but it's complicated. So I've been playing and running a lot of D&D 2024 games recently, and I've been playing D&D for a long time now. Well, granted, not as long as some of you watching this video probably, but still a pretty long time. And what kind of prompted this video is this growing discussion online regarding an issue that has been building for a while now, and something that I noticed ever since I switched my group from D&D over the Pathfinder a couple of years ago, and something that has become so glaringly obvious that the average D&D player who doesn't follow any TTRPG news online has begun noticing. D&D hype is dying. Stranger Things is ending. Baldur's Gate excitement is slowly declining because we're probably not going to be getting a DLC as far as we know at least, and Critical Role is most likely going to be ditching D&D to favor their own new game system, which was just released. But why should you care what some random dude on YouTube has to say? Well, I've been running a lot of professional D&D games both in person and online using VTTs to specifically teach people D&D, and the majority of the people who sign up for my games are young adults or college students. So basically the new generation of dice rollers and dice goblins and fireball casters, and the people who will inevitably determine if D&D stays relevant. And the main cause for these people wanting to try out D&D was because they played Baldur's Gate, or saw the D&D movie, or saw Stranger Things, or saw a clip of Dimension 20 or Critical Role and thought it was cool, so they wanted to try it out for themselves. And amongst this new generation of dice goblins, there has been this growing resentment and this dissatisfaction and annoyance with WotC, and believe it or not, it's not because of any of the shady things they've been doing recently, because the majority of the new players don't even know about those things. It's the lack of regularly released official adventures that take characters from level 1 all the way to level 20, and trust me, I know about organized play and any of the number of third-party adventure books that do this wonderfully, but what people want is official D&D adventures for the things that got them into the hobby in the first place. And what I've kind of gathered by talking to all these new D&D players is that they want stuff that keeps them excited and hyped about D&D beyond their home game or the random anthology one-shots that are run every Friday at their local game store. Because whether we like it or not, all popular games nowadays, whether they're an FPS, a strategy game, a card game, a MOBA, or whatever, all have seasons, and this is mainly a monetization strategy to give people FOMO because they might miss that really cool exclusive skin at the end of the battle pass or whatever, but it also keeps people talking about the game. What changes are coming up, what new characters are being released, or what DLC is gonna drop. And while D&D does release new books with new character classes and stuff like that, they don't carry with them the same hype that you would expect, or at least not anymore. And personally, I feel like this is because new D&D players, like I said before, don't follow TTRPG news all that closely and don't care about the new books unless their game master specifically buys it for the table and brings it to the game night, or lets the players access on D&D Beyond or something to that effect. And recently, D&D has been failing to generate its own hype and keep that hype alive because every time a new book is announced or released, there is generally a little spike of excitement amongst game masters and content creators, you know, the people who generally keep up with D&D news, but then after a couple of days or a week or so after that book's release, all that excitement peters out, and the average player doesn't even know that book was ever released or exists. And this is actually a great point to bring up a recent example with D&D's most recent adventure book that was released a couple of weeks ago, because I saw basically nothing about this book until the day before it was released, and I like to think that I'm someone who follows D&D news pretty closely. And the book is cool and all, but it includes basically nothing but anthology adventures that can kind of be strung together in a dragon-themed campaign, I guess, which, to the book's credit, does give you some guidance on how to do, but that guidance is pretty minimal. And I love dragons as much as, if not more, than the next guy, but I'm not the biggest fan of this book, and I feel like I haven't seen anyone talking about it or excited about it. And it's not just this book. Even the new Artificer book and Unearthed Arcana that D&D has been trying to advertise, I feel like I haven't seen very much about unless I actually went looking for it. And frankly, I'm not all that interested in it, because I already know that the new Artificer and the new Wizard subclasses are either going to be really strong or really lackluster like the new Ranger, and it's just going to add to the already annoying amount of power creep that's happening in modern D&D. But if you care what I think about this new book, the long and the short of it is this: it's perfectly fine. It's not great, it's not terrible either, it's just okay. But what I would have liked from this book, and something that I think other players and game masters would have also liked from this book, rather than it being a bunch of random anthology adventures that can kind of be strung together as a campaign, I think it would have been better as a continuous levels 1 through 15 or 20 adventure that you could split up into multiple one-shots, rather than the other way around. I literally don't understand how they managed to make a book centered around 10 different dragons, but failed to make the adventures go past 12th level, and if anything, that just goes to show you how strong 12th level characters are with the new D&D rules. And that's one of the biggest problems with D&D nowadays. The balancing is all out of whack, and everything being released and played is an anthology one-shot or short adventure that ends after a couple of sessions, and you're left there with your level 8 character wishing that the story could continue on in some capacity, but it never will because there's no adventure extensions or DLCs to already established adventures. And if they do release one, it's like 10 years later, like what happened with the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And I feel like this is because WotC has picked up on the fact that game masters who don't have a dedicated home group prefer to run one-shots or short adventures rather than long adventures because it's just easier to do and easier to get a group together for because there's just less commitment for everyone involved. But what's interesting is that they've picked up on that trend, but they haven't picked up on the fact that people are just getting annoyed and kind of burnt out with yet another book that's filled with anthology adventures, and it's just okay, and how much people are longing for something like what a certain other TTRPG company does with their adventures and books. And not only that, but I feel like WotC has realized how unpopular their recent D&D adventure books have been, and I suspect that's why they've started putting a lot more third-party content and adventure books on D&D Beyond. Besides, of course, them trying to get back into the good graces of the community after the whole OGL fiasco. Which is great, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of sad when the official brand for a game system struggles to release an adventure or a book that is more popular or can go toe-to-toe with some of the third-party content that's on the same website. But going back to what I was saying at the beginning of the video, I've been running a lot of adventures for a meetup group that has a lot of different kinds of experienced players. Some have been playing D&D for a long time, others have only just started, and multiple times players have approached me and expressed how cool it'd be to have an ongoing adventure rather than just running anthology one-shots, which is what myself and many other game masters generally run the most. And specifically, players have brought up to me multiple times now how cool it would be if there were adventures or one-shots, or ideally long campaigns that are broken up into one-shots or short stories or whatever that lead up to the events of Baldur's Gate 3 or the D&D movie or something like that. Like all of that hype, interest, and excitement was completely and utterly wasted by WotC and D&D, and I think that ZachTheBold hit the nail on the head in his recent video when he said,
"We had the hype for 2023 Dungeons & Dragons, but we don't have a campaign set after the movie Honor Among Thieves. We don't have a Baldur's Gate 3, you know, what the Karlach DLC maybe could have been as an actual book. We didn't make anything for the actual tabletop role-playing game except new rules, and now it's whispers in the wind." And waiting until late 2025, 2026 for a new campaign makes me a little worried about the health of Adventures League, of public play.
Because so far, all WotC has done to capitalize off of the incredible hype that this movie and video game have created, which put D&D in front of so many people who had no interest in D&D before, was use the faces of beloved Baldur's Gate 3 characters to sell subscriptions and create a VTT that went absolutely nowhere and was dead on arrival. The amount of times in recent years that WotC has had a golden opportunity to capitalize off the excitement of one of the many things that generated hype and excitement about the game and hobby, and to expand the community by releasing content that people want and then not doing so is baffling. Literally, all they had to do was do what Paizo does with their adventure paths and make it about Karlach's backstory, since we seem to not be getting a Baldur's Gate DLC anytime soon. And that's something that I have grown to adore about Paizo, because in case you didn't know, Paizo, the company behind Pathfinder, has tons of adventures called adventure paths, whose NPCs, story plots, and villains all tie into one another, and generally they're split up into parts so that your group can take a break if need be. And once you're done with an adventure path, you can end that storyline, make some new characters, and begin another one if you want to. And what's even better is that they've started putting these adventure paths pre-made entirely on virtual tabletops like Foundry, for example, which just makes running them so much easier. And I'm not sponsored by Foundry or Paizo or anything, I just really like what they're doing with the adventure paths. And I think this comment on Zach's video says it best. It's so wild how Paizo figured out how to regularly release campaigns and setting source books regularly like 10 years ago already, yet D&D with its massive budget and corporate backing just cannot. Exactly. It should not be this difficult, and I think that if you pitch this idea to the community, it would be wildly popular to have adventures that have 2 or 3 parts that are released throughout the year to generate hype and keep people coming back for those adventures. Not only would it be good for D&D because it frankly would get them exactly what they want, which is more money, but it would also keep people coming back and getting excited about the next part of the adventure and talking about it with their friends and bringing new friends into the hobby. And it would make game nights and organized play at local game stores really popular because the hype generated from these adventures would be incredibly contagious, or at least I think they would be incredibly contagious, especially in the D&D community, and game stores could do special early release game nights where they have the adventure paths, out tons of tables, and so much more. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and consider sharing this video if you want to spread some of these ideas around. Now at this point, you might be thinking, why do you care? People are moving on from D&D. You yourself have said that the game is dying and hype for it is slowly petering out. Why are you trying to give a company who has historically treated its fans like garbage ideas? Well, I mainly care because D&D is still one of the main game systems I teach and run adventures with, and it's still the name that everyone recognizes when it comes to TTRPGs. If you say you played Pathfinder or Cairn or Shadowdark or a TTRPG, no one outside of those communities will know what that is until you say, it's like D&D, do you know what that is? Then they will immediately know what you mean, or at least have heard of D&D and know generally what it is. And D&D still has the power to be a trendsetter, and I think that if they do it, or better yet, if a third party starts doing this and it's really successful, then D&D executives will surely have to follow suit because that's where the money's at. My stance on the issue of D&D hype dying is this. I don't like WotC, but I do like D&D. More so, I like how D&D and other TTRPGs brings nerds together for fun, wacky, or serious, epic moments. Like if you're at a gaming hall or a bar or a game store and your table erupts with screams and cheers because the paladin with 1 HP just crit the boss with a smite to save the day, and everyone else looks over wondering what could possibly be so much fun, and maybe even bring some of them to wander over and ask what you're playing and if they can join in next time. That is what I love about D&D. It naturally gets people interested and excited, and all WotC has to do, and what they have been utterly failing at doing recently, is finding a way to get people hyped and keep that hype going about their adventure books. But anyways, that's my 2 cents on the whole D&D hype is dying thing, and if you're curious about playing a Pathfinder adventure path to see what I'm on about, then I would heavily recommend trying out any of these adventure paths. But with that, everybody, thank you so much for watching this video, and please consider supporting the channel by leaving a like, subscribing, or commenting, because all those things are free, and I always love hearing and reading what you guys have to think about my videos. But anyways, everybody, thank you again so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take it easy. Bye-bye.